Okay. All right, good deal. Okay, so I can kind of take my time then. This is the viewpoint. So I want you to know what it is that this really does. And everything is one of these scatter charts. I don't have any of the other stuff, but you can do bar graphs, pie charts. I don't know what they're called, but they got 4 different axes, or 2 different axes, or 4 different axes where it's running, and it just makes everything pretty. And this one is the bandwidth. So you can see when the bandwidth jumps, lunchtime. Jumped right up to the top, that's the highest. And it'll give you, you can go, there's more pages if you click that little arrow over there, which is kind of hard to find, but right up there, you can go to the next page and see all the times and the percentage of the bandwidth used for that day where it falls. Oh, and you can do by user, and you can see who's using the most. And if there isn't a user defined in the system, it automatically uses the NetBIOS name of the PC. So if you use good description, you know who's really doing it. They don't necessarily have to have a user. And you can do over time, which is a span of time, and by user over time, which is a span over time, according to the who's using the most. So the ROI is kind of nice if you have people that want to know if they're making their money. I don't know if this is reliable at all because I don't really care. I just use the thing. But they calculate how much cost it is per megabyte. And you can give this to your CIO and be like, see, it's worth what we paid for it, which is a lot of money. But I don't, they came up with it, so it's probably not right. But same thing, over time, blah, blah, blah. This is kind of cool. This will show you all the services that have been running on your network. So you can go down the list and see by colors whether people are using IRC and they're not supposed to, or instant messaging, or and it also shows you the amount of megabits per protocol. So you see HTTP is at the top, and then POP3 is right below that, and then SMTP is right below that, so internet and email. There's a little FTP there that our virus scanner uses, and HTTPS management. And what's this one? The web usage. So this is who's on the internet the most. This is kind of nice because they may be using a lot of bandwidth, but they might not necessarily be using the internet. So if you want to just know who's on the internet all the time, you can just look at this log and it'll show you, and it's broken down. This has got the most options for different ways to view the data. It's got quite a few, and you can base it on user, sites, the top sites that are accessed every day, over time, and all that fun stuff. The next one is browse time. So now you can see who's actually by time, because the other one's by megabits. So who's gotten the most megabits from the web is that. And this is browse time for the actual browser that they're using. So you can see if they're on for 3, 4, 5 hours a day. And what's this one? This is the web filter. And this is kind of cool too. You can see who's trying to access stuff they're not supposed to, and how much, and what. It'll show you the category and where it falls. If you look down here, there's one by category or something like that you can view. The next one is FTP usage. And right here, see how there's this giant spike? Every morning, our antivirus uses FTP to update its signatures on our client system. So right in the morning, you can see when everybody's coming in, it's jumping up and getting the updates first thing, and then it kind of trickles off. And it'll show you how many instances at what time. Mail usage, so email usage, that's pretty self-explanatory. Most of these are. I skipped over VPN because we didn't have any VPN when I actually put this together, but I just recently set up the VPN, and the VPN does the same thing. It just shows you how long the tunnels were active and where they were coming from, because the VPN settings have to be associated with a user or a group, and you can see who is using it and all that, and MAC address and IP address and all that. The attacks. This will show you, this is a summary of all the attacks. All the virus attacks, the spyware attacks, intrusion prevention attacks. It shows them all. Summary of everything. And there really isn't anything. Like, you see this huge spike, but if you look down at here, like, there's not that much. So that's, you can get it over time and all that stuff, and see when, what time, who's getting the most attacks, the destination. The virus attacks, this breaks it down in just viruses. So you know how many different viruses at what time we're trying to hit. The next one is the intrusion. So you can see when the intrusion, it just pulls it out of the main attack, so you can look at it by the different things. And that's really it. Blended threats are the way everything's going. So why have a million things sitting on your rack when you can have one with one system to manage it one way? It's really easy to throw in right out the box. You take it out, you have to direct connect it to another PC, change your IP address to something, go in, change the username and password, change that IP address, and then just replace your gateway, and everything works right off the bat. You saw the functions and the security services that are in it. The only thing I suggest is not doing Viewpoint, if you can get away with it, at least for right now. I've talked to SonicWall, and they said that they're going to try to fix that. So maybe the next version, you'll be able to get to the link to the interface, the web interface for the SonicWall, but you'll still have to put in the admin password and be able to go in. So hopefully they do that, because that's really bad. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
You mentioned earlier in the presentation that they use Snort signatures. Do they credit any other open source projects?
No. Nope. And they don't even credit it in their documentation. Like, if you go to their manuals, and all their manuals are available on the web. If you just go to their site, you can get the manuals for the entire system. For every different security service and everything, you can get the whole manual, which they're really good manuals, but they don't attribute it to Snort. The only reason I know that it uses Snort is because before we bought this thing, the reason why we bought it is we went to a presentation. The company came down, and they told us that it was Snort. That's the only reason why I know. But they don't reference it anywhere else, so that's kind of bogus. But
well, I guess you probably know. So never mind. I was going to say, like, if they use any part of the Snort engine, and like you remember, I guess.
No, I don't think they do. I think they reference that a little. All their software, I think they wrote it all themselves. Okay. I don't think they actually took anything from Snort, but I think they just use their signature structure. So
another question I have is, what are some things that this can do over, like, just enough time in Linux and other open source software? Like, if I had enough time, from what you've shown me, I could build all that functionality using Linux and other open source stuff.
I'm sure.
But like, is there anything that can do that's not available in the open source community right now that you know of?
Well, the difference is, because the software, it's still running on your disk. It's still software. And it's a little different the way that it works, because the hardware was designed specifically for the software. So it operates better with each other. There's not any conflict. And I know, you could set one up in Linux, and if you know how to do that, then do it. Don't spend the money. But this is enterprise level stuff, and if people don't want to mess around with trying to do all that and want something that's going to last and that has warranties and blah, 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 this is the way to go, over just buying like a firewall and throwing it in. That's really the point. Yeah, but yeah, you could build a Linux box that does all that same stuff. So.
Go ahead. What's the cost on that? Is it something that only a company would afford? Is it like?
Well, you can get the small. There's a bunch of different versions.
If I have a small office, like 10.
Yeah, you can get. It's called the TZ170. And it's the smallest version, and there's two different models. Well, actually, there's three different models. One is the standard one, which is the lowest cost, which is under $1,000, is only 10 nodes. But you can load the OS Enhanced and every single service on it. And that's the way it goes for all of them. Everything is exactly the same. It's just the processing power and how many clients it can handle at one time. And the TZ170, like I said, is under $100, or under $1,000. But the problem is the services are still really expensive. So for the hardware, you can buy a TZ170, and it's I think it might be $700, and you get the firewall and all that stuff stock in the operating system, but you don't get any of the security services. But the services themselves cost a lot. That's really where they make their money, because even the the 2040 in 2004 won an award for being like the best security appliance from one of the big network or security magazines. And the box itself is only $2,000. And that's the one throughout my talk, that was a 2040 that I was using. The software was off the 2040. And you can get, it goes all the way up to 5060, which the difference with that one is it has OS enhanced on it. 4060 and 5060 have enhanced on it by default, and it's got a gigabit port. So, but the services, I can't remember the amount, but like you have to buy the intrusion prevention, the anti-spyware, and the web or the email filtering as one package, but they're separate services. And then everything else you can purchase separately. But everything, there's nothing less than $1,000 in there. So.
With the subscriptions that you're talking about, what kind of price ranges are those for is it monthly or yearly?
It's a yearly fee. You pay
like $1,000 like a year or so for services?
Yeah. You can buy multiple years at a time and get a discount, but it's an annual fee. So, got another one? What's up?
Yeah. Like if I didn't want to use signature-based antivirus stuff and I wanted to write a module that used heuristics, how easy is do they provide any information on writing plugins or
No,
anything?
you can't. There's they won't let you in any of it. It's 100% proprietary. You can't add anything to it unless they do it for you. But they're actually pretty cool about calling them and saying that I would like to have this, and then they'll do it. Because we actually requested that they make it able to do the category groups with the content filtering, and they did it. They said they had a couple other requests for it, but we were only the third company that requested it, and they did it. It was in their new version. So, they will add that stuff for you if it's within reason to them. I'm sure they won't add that in there because then they're losing out on money, and they're all about money. But any other questions?
Sorry. Well, I worked in an enterprise environment doing security stuff. One other part that I dealt with was doing forensics and if we had to prosecute employees and stuff like that. And you mentioned about the logging. How is their logging set up? Is it logging the data to the box, or can you set it up to log to a
well, you can. It'll log to the box. It'll log to the box, and it saves it as a file. It'll email you that file. You can set it to email it, and it emails it as a text file, and then you can save it. And you can also download the logs manually by going to the logging section, and then there's a button to download the logs, and it'll download it to your PC. So you can store all your logs. And you can also state, how long. So you can get, I think we have ours set for 15 days. It keeps the raw logs for 15 days inside the box before it automatically sends them or deletes them or overwrites them. I think it overwrites them. It doesn't just delete them. So the next entry, it just overwrites the first entry. So, any other questions?
Yeah. You had said that SonicWall actually, you had one of the options checked where they could test against vulnerabilities or whatever on your box.
Yeah.
Now, how often is that? You have a chance of something like that happening? Are they mucking with your box a lot, or?
It's slim because there's so many of these out there, and they have units. They pretty much know. The guy said that they don't do it very often, but if they have to, then just leave it open. Yeah, they tell you. Yeah, they tell you. They'll let you know. Yeah, no, they're not just messing with your stuff while you're, because they can't. All they're doing is sending a virus your way. That's it. I talked to him, and there isn't any backdoors to it for the company. So you have to give them your username and password if you need them to remotely administrate. They can't just get in. So, anything else? No? Okay. Thanks for coming, guys. Low-Tech has tickets, and if you thought it was cool, then go get a ticket from Low-Tech. And you get a prize at the end of the con, so.